snow fell in thick, silent curtains over the Alaskan wilderness, blanketing the world in white that stretched endlessly in every direction. 16-year-old Riley McKenna stood on the porch of her family's remote homestead, watching the storm roll in from the north with eyes that had learned to read the weather like other kids read social media. Riley McKenna was small for her age, barely 5'3", with a lean, wiry build that came from years of splitting wood, hauling water, and surviving in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Her hair, a dark chestnut brown, was pulled back in a practical braid that hung down her back. Her face was angular, all sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw, with gray eyes that held a maturity far beyond her 16 years. She wore layers, thermal underwear, flannel, a heavy Carhartt jacket that had belonged to her father, and boots that were 2 sizes too big but lined with enough wool socks to make them work. Beside her sat Kodiak, and he was magnificent. Kodiak was a 140-pound Alaskan Malamute with a thick double coat of gray and white, piercing blue eyes, and the quiet dignity of a wolf who had chosen to love humans. He wasn't a pet. He was Riley's partner, her protector, and often her only companion in a world that had taken almost everything from her. Her father had trained him from a puppy, trained him for search and rescue, for pulling sleds, for survival in conditions that would kill most dogs within hours. Riley's father, Jack McKenna, had been a legend in these parts. A former Army Ranger turned wilderness guide, he had taught Riley everything: how to track, how to hunt, how to survive when the temperature dropped to 40 below and the sun disappeared for months. He had been her hero, her teacher, her whole world. And then, 3 months ago, his plane had gone down during a supply run to Fairbanks. They'd found the wreckage scattered across a mountainside. They never found him. Now it was just Riley, her grief, and 100 acres of frozen wilderness that she refused to leave because it was the last place her father had called home. "Big storm coming, Cody," Riley said quietly, her breath visible in the frigid air. "Maybe 3 days of whiteout. We need to secure everything." Kodiak's ears swiveled toward her voice, his tail giving a single thump of acknowledgement. Riley had been through storms before, brutal, killing storms that buried buildings and turned the world into a howling white hell. But something about this one felt different. The air had that peculiar quality that came before something bad. Her father used to call it the quiet before God clears his throat. She spent the afternoon preparing, bringing in extra firewood, checking the generator, securing the shutters on the windows, filling every container with water from the well before the pipes froze solid. Kodiak helped where he could, dragging branches, alerting her to loose boards that needed securing, his presence a comfort in the gathering darkness. As the sun set, or what passed for sunset in the Alaskan winter, a brief dimming of the perpetual twilight, Riley made one final check of the perimeter. That's when Kodiak stopped, his entire body going rigid. "What is it, boy?" Riley asked, her hand instinctively moving to the bear spray on her belt. Kodiak was staring into the forest, toward the old trapper's trail that ran through the McKenna property toward the mountains. His hackles were raised, not in aggression, but in alert. Something was out there, something that didn't belong. Riley grabbed her father's binoculars and scanned the tree line. For a long moment, she saw nothing but snow-laden spruce in the gathering dark. Then, there, a flash of something that wasn't white, dark fabric, movement. "Someone's out there," she whispered. In all her years in Alaska, Riley had learned that unexpected visitors in winter meant one of two things. They were lost, or they were trouble. Either way, in a storm like this, they'd be dead by morning if they weren't brought in. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "Cody, track," Riley commanded. The Malamute immediately put his nose to the ground and began moving toward the trail, his powerful body pushing through snow that would have stopped a smaller dog. Riley followed, her headlamp cutting a weak beam through the swirling flakes. The storm was intensifying. Visibility dropped to less than 20 feet. The temperature was falling fast, already 15 below, and it would hit 30 or 40 below by midnight. Wind chill would make it even worse. Kodiak led her along the trail for nearly half a mile before he stopped at something that made Riley's blood run cold. Blood in the snow. Not a lot, but enough. A trail of it leading deeper into the forest, and beside the blood, boot prints. Military-issue boots from the tread pattern. 2 sets, both staggering, uneven, the gait of injured people barely staying upright. Riley's mind raced. Her homestead was 40 miles from the nearest town, 70 miles from the nearest military installation. Why would soldiers be out here, and why would they be bleeding and alone in a killing storm? "Cody, follow," she said, her voice grim. They tracked the blood trail for another quarter mile, the storm screaming around them, until they found it. The old trapper's cabin. It was a relic from another era, a single-room structure made of logs, barely standing, that her father had shown her years ago. "Emergency shelter," he'd said. "If you're ever caught out here, that cabin could save your life." Now, in the howling dark, Riley could see that someone had forced the door open. The blood trail led inside. "Hello?" Riley called out, her hand on the pistol her father had taught her to carry. "Is anyone in there? I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help." Silence. Just the wind and the snow and the pounding of her heart. Riley pushed the door open. Her headlamp swept the interior, and what she saw made her gasp. 2 men lay on the floor of the cabin, both in dark tactical clothing, both in terrible condition. One was pressed against the back wall, his face pale and drawn, his hands zip-tied behind his back. The other was sprawled near the door, also restrained, a pool of frozen blood beneath him. Both men had been beaten, badly. Their faces were bruised and swollen. Their tactical gear had been stripped. No weapons, no communications equipment, no cold weather gear. They had been left here to die. "Oh my God," Riley breathed. The man against the wall, blonde hair going gray, sharp features, late 30s, opened his eyes. They were blue, clouded with pain and hypothermia, but they focused on her with an intensity that was almost frightening. "Run," he croaked, his voice barely audible. "Not safe. They might come back." Riley ignored him. She was already moving to the second man, checking for a pulse. It was there, thready and weak, but present. He was younger, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and olive skin. The blood was from a deep laceration on his side, partially frozen, which had probably saved his life by limiting the blood loss. "Who did this to you?" Riley asked, pulling off her gloves to get a better assessment. "Doesn't matter," the blond man said. "Need to get out. Get help. They'll kill you too." Riley looked at him. The stranger, who even in his broken state was more worried about her safety than his own. She recognized the type. Her father had been the same way. "I'm Riley McKenna," she said firmly. "This is my land. That storm outside is going to kill everyone who's not inside in the next hour. So, you're going to shut up, let me help you, And then you're going to tell me who the hell you are and why someone left you here to freeze to death." The man stared at her for a long moment. Then something that might have been a smile crossed his battered face. "Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross, Navy SEAL," he managed. "My partner, Chief Petty Officer Nathan Reeves. We were ambushed, betrayed." Riley's eyes widened. Navy SEALs, here, in Alaska, left to die. "Well, Commander Cross," Riley said, standing up and assessing the tactical problem, "you picked a hell of a place to get ambushed, but you're lucky, because I don't leave people to die in the cold, ever." She turned to Kodiak, who had been standing guard at the door. "Cody, we need to get them home. You understand? Home." The Malamute's ears pricked up. He understood. He looked at the two injured men, then back at Riley, and she could swear she saw concern in those blue eyes. "This is going to be rough," Riley said, more to herself than to the men. "But I need you both to stay conscious. Can you do that?" Nathan, the darker-haired SEAL, stirred slightly. "Cold," I whispered. "So, cold." Riley knew that whisper. That was late-stage hypothermia. He was dying. She pulled off her heavy Carhartt jacket and draped it over Nathan, then began cutting his zip-tie restraints with the knife on her belt. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Her father had taught her field medicine, emergency response, how to save lives when help was hours or days away. "Commander, I'm going to free you, then we're going to carry your partner. He's worse off than you are. Can you walk?" Ethan nodded, though the movement made him wince. "I can manage." Riley cut his restraints and helped him to his feet. He swayed, nearly fell, but caught himself. He was tough. That was good. She was going to need tough. Between them, they got Nathan upright. The man was dead weight, his consciousness fading. Riley took most of his weight. She was stronger than she looked, while Ethan supported his other side. "Cody," Riley commanded, "lead us home. Slow and steady." The Malamute immediately pushed out into the storm, breaking trail through the deep snow. Riley and Ethan followed, carrying Nathan between them, every step a battle against the wind and cold and exhaustion. The quarter-mile back to the homestead took 30 minutes that felt like hours. The storm was at full strength now, the wind shrieking like something alive and malicious. Visibility was zero. Without Kodiak's unerring sense of direction, they would have been lost, would have died within sight of safety. But the Malamute never wavered. He pushed through drifts up to his chest, constantly looking back to make sure his humans were following, his tail a flag of determination in the white chaos. When they finally saw the lights of the homestead, Riley had left them on as a beacon. She wanted to cry with relief. But there was no time for emotion. Nathan had stopped shivering, which meant his core temperature was critically low. They had minutes, not hours. "Almost there," she said, more to herself than to Ethan. "Hold on. Both of you, hold on." They reached the porch. Kodiak scratched at the door, and Riley kicked it open. Heat rolled out like a blessing, the wood stove she'd stoked before leaving still blazing. "Inside," she commanded. "Now." They carried Nathan to the floor in front of the fire. Riley immediately began stripping away his wet, frozen tactical gear, replacing it with dry blankets from her emergency supply. She knew the protocol. Warm the core first, not the extremities. Warm water bottles wrapped in towels, placed at the neck, armpits, and groin. Slow rewarming to prevent shock. Ethan collapsed against the wall, his own hypothermia taking hold now that the adrenaline was fading. Riley threw more blankets over him, then turned her attention back to Nathan. "Come on," she whispered, checking his pulse, his breathing. "Come on, Chief. Don't you die on me. Not after I dragged you through hell to get here." Kodiak lay down beside Nathan, his massive body pressed against the seal's side, sharing his warmth. It was something Riley had never trained him to do. It was pure instinct, pure compassion. The dog understood that this man was dying, and he was offering the only thing he had, his own heat, his own life. Riley looked at her dog, at this magnificent creature who had guided them home through impossible conditions, and felt tears finally come. "Good boy, Cody," she whispered. "Good boy." She worked through the night, monitoring vital signs, adjusting blankets, fighting to keep both men alive. The storm raged outside, sealing them in, cutting them off from any help. It was just Riley, her dog, and 2 Navy SEALs who had been betrayed and left to die in the frozen wilderness. And as the hours passed and dawn broke gray and dim over the storm-ravaged landscape, one thought kept running through Riley's mind. Who had done this? And were they coming back to finish the job? End of Part 1. 2-401 words. Part 2. The violation. Dawn brought no relief. The storm continued its assault on the homestead, piling snow against the walls, howling through every crack and crevice. Riley had been awake for 36 hours straight, monitoring the 2 SEALs, adjusting their care, and trying to keep them from slipping into the final darkness. Nathan, Chief Petty Officer Nathan Reeves, was stable now, but still unconscious. His breathing had evened out. His color had improved from deathly pale to merely terrible, and his core temperature had climbed back into the safe zone. The laceration on his side had required 12 stitches, which Riley had administered with hands that barely shook, using supplies from the comprehensive medical kit her father had insisted she maintain. "You live 40 miles from help," he'd told her years ago. "Out here, you are the help." Ethan, Lieutenant Commander Ethan Cross, was conscious but weak. He sat wrapped in blankets near the wood stove, his blue eyes tracking Riley's every movement. He hadn't spoken much, saving his energy, but Riley could see the questions building behind those eyes. Kodiak maintained his vigil beside Nathan, the Malamute's body providing constant warmth. Every few hours, Riley would try to move him, to give the dog a break, to let him eat or drink, but Kodiak would just give her a look that clearly said, "I'm staying," and settle back down beside the injured SEAL. It was the most remarkable thing Riley had ever seen. Her dog had claimed Nathan as his to protect, and nothing was going to change his mind. "Your dog," Ethan said, his voice still rough but stronger than before, "is extraordinary." Riley looked up from checking Nathan's pulse. "He is. My father trained him for search and rescue, but this—" She gestured to Kodiak's protective posture. "This is all him. This is just who he is." "Your father," Ethan said carefully. "Is he here? Should I expect someone to come through that door?" Riley's jaw tightened. "My father is dead. Plane crash 3 months ago. It's just me now." Ethan's expression shifted. Grief, recognition, respect. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Riley nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She returned to her work, checking Nathan's IV line. She'd started one using supplies from her father's kit, pushing fluids to combat the dehydration and hypothermia. "Riley," Ethan said quietly, "we need to talk about what happened, about why we're here." "I figured you did," Riley replied, adjusting Nathan's blankets. "Navy SEALs don't just show up in the middle of nowhere, beaten and zip-tied unless something went very wrong." Ethan was silent for a moment, clearly debating how much to tell her. Finally, he spoke. We were on a training operation, Arctic warfare exercises, classified, about 60 miles north of here. Nathan and I were tasked with a reconnaissance patrol, checking routes, assessing terrain, preparing for the main force. He paused, his face darkening. But the operation was compromised. Someone leaked our position, our route, everything. We were ambushed by a team of contractors, private military, well-equipped, professional. They knew exactly where we'd be and when. Riley sat back on her heels. Why? Why would contractors ambush SEALs during a training op? Because this wasn't about training, Ethan said bitterly. This was about something we saw. 3 days ago, Nathan and I discovered an illegal operation, weapons caches, smuggling routes, evidence of arms trafficking running through Alaska into Russia. We reported it up the chain, and 12 hours later, we were ambushed. Riley's blood ran cold. Someone in your chain of command is dirty. Not just dirty, Ethan corrected. Someone with enough authority to compromise a classified operation, to send contractors to eliminate witnesses, and to make it look like we died in a training accident. But they didn't kill you, Riley pointed out. They left you to freeze. Cleaner, Ethan said. Hypothermia looks like natural causes in Alaska. 2 SEALs got lost in a storm, couldn't find shelter, froze to death. Tragic accident. No bullets, no evidence of foul play. Riley processed this, except you did find shelter, and I found you. Which means, Ethan said, his voice grim, that we're now all targets. You, me, Nathan. When those contractors realize we didn't die, they'll come back to finish the job, and they'll have to eliminate any witnesses, including you. Riley stood and walked to the window, looking out at the storm. How many contractors? At least 6 in the ambush team, probably more in support. And you think they'll come here? Eventually, Ethan confirmed. Once the storm clears enough for them to move, they'll track us from the trapper's cabin. It's the only structure in this area. They'll find the blood trail, follow it here. Riley turned back to face him, and Ethan saw something in her gray eyes that made him reassess this 16-year-old girl. There was no fear there, only calculation. Then we prepare, Riley said simply. We turn this homestead into a fortress, and when they come, we make them regret it. Ethan stared at her. Riley, these are trained killers. Professional contractors with military-grade weapons. I'm the daughter of Jack McKenna, Riley interrupted, her voice steel. You know that name? Ethan's eyes widened. The Jack McKenna, Army Ranger 75th Regiment, the one who survived behind enemy lines in Iraq for 3 weeks, evaded capture, and killed 12 insurgents with nothing but a knife and his wits, Riley finished. Yeah, that was my dad, and he taught me everything he knew. So, don't underestimate me, Commander. I've been preparing for fights my whole life. For the first time since the ambush, Ethan felt something other than despair. He felt hope. All right, he said, struggling to his feet. Then, let's get to work. The next 6 hours were a blur of preparation. Despite his injuries and exhaustion, Ethan moved with the efficiency of a professional operator. Riley matched him step for step, her knowledge of the homestead and its defenses combining with his tactical expertise. They started with inventory. Weapons? Ethan asked. Riley led him to her father's gun safe. Inside, 2 rifles, a .308 Winchester for hunting and a semi-automatic AR-15 for defense, a 12-gauge shotgun, 2 pistols, a .45 and a 9mm ammunition for all of them, more than 1,000 rounds total. Not bad, Ethan said approvingly. Your father believed in preparation. He believed in survival, Riley corrected. They moved to fortifications. The homestead was solidly built, log construction with reinforced windows. Riley showed Ethan the shutters her father had installed, heavy plywood barriers that could be lowered over the windows, turning the structure into a bunker. We've got 2 weak points, Ethan said, analyzing the layout. The front door and the back door, both wood, both can be breached. Dad reinforced them with steel plates, Riley said, and there's a bar that drops across each one from the inside. It would take explosives to get through. Do they have explosives? Probably. Ethan nodded grimly. Then we need fallback positions, multiple defensive layers. If they breach the first line, we retreat to the second. They spent the next hours creating those layers, using furniture and supplies to create barriers and choke points. The homestead's layout helped. It was essentially one large room with a sleeping loft above and a root cellar below. The cellar, Riley said. It's got a tunnel. Ethan's head snapped up. What? My dad was paranoid about fire. He dug an escape tunnel from the cellar that comes out about 50 yards into the forest, just in case. Ethan actually smiled. Your father was a genius. He was, Riley said quietly. They checked the tunnel. It was narrow, barely wide enough for an adult to crawl through, but it was clear and led to a concealed exit behind a fallen log. It was their escape route if everything went to hell. As they worked, Nathan began to stir. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then sharpening. He looked around, confused, and his gaze fell on Kodiak lying beside him. Hey, Nathan whispered, his voice weak. Who are you? Kodiak's tail thumped once. The Malamute licked Nathan's hand, a gentle, careful gesture. That's Kodiak, Riley said, kneeling beside Nathan. He's been keeping you warm for the last 12 hours. You owe him your life. Nathan's hand moved slowly, burying itself in Kodiak's thick fur. Good dog, he whispered. Good boy. Kodiak let out a soft whine of acknowledgement, his tail wagging harder now. Riley checked Nathan's vitals. Pulse stronger, breathing normal, pupils reactive. How do you feel, Chief? Like I got run over by a truck, Nathan said, but alive. How did we get here? That's a long story, Ethan said, coming over. Short version. Riley found us in the trapper's cabin, saved our lives, and brought us here through the worst storm I've ever seen. She's been keeping us alive ever since. Nathan looked at Riley. Really looked at her. 16 years old, exhausted, covered in dried blood from treating his wounds, but standing tall and steady. Thank you, he said simply. Thank you for not leaving us. I don't leave people behind, Riley replied. My dad taught me that. Nathan nodded, then his eyes focused on something beyond Riley. Ethan, the contractors. They're still out there, Ethan confirmed. And they'll come for us once the storm breaks. We're preparing defenses. But Nathan, you're in no condition to fight. You need to stay down, let your body heal. The hell I do, Nathan said, trying to sit up. He immediately gasped in pain, his hand going to his stitched side. Easy, Riley said firmly, pushing him gently back down. You tear those stitches and you'll bleed out. Commander Cross is right. You need rest. Nathan looked like he wanted to argue, but the pain and exhaustion were too much. Fine, but give me a weapon. If they breach, I want to be able to defend myself. Riley placed her father's .45 within Nathan's reach. There, now rest. Let Cody watch over you. As if understanding the assignment, Kodiak settled back down beside Nathan, his body pressed protectively against the seal's uninjured side. Ethan watched the interaction with a strange expression. "Your dog really has claimed Nathan?" "Malamutes bond hard," Riley said. "Once Cody decides someone is pack, that's it. They're family. He'll protect Nathan with his life now." "Must be nice," Ethan said quietly, "to have that kind of loyalty." Riley looked at him, seeing the exhaustion and pain and fear in his eyes. Fear not for himself, but for his partner, for the mission, for all the things that had gone wrong. "You've got it too," she said. "You carried Chief Reeves through that storm. You didn't leave him. That's the same loyalty." Ethan met her gaze. "Your father raised someone special, Riley." "He tried," Riley said. "Now let's make sure we're all alive tomorrow to honor that." They continued preparing until exhaustion forced them to stop. Riley made them eat. Canned soup, bread, strong coffee, fuel for the fight to come. Outside, the storm showed no signs of stopping. As night fell again, Riley took the first watch. She sat by the window, the AR-15 across her lap, scanning the storm-whipped darkness for any sign of movement. Kodiak left Nathan's side long enough to come sit beside her, his massive head resting on her knee. "You did good today, boy," Riley whispered, stroking his fur. "Dad would be proud of you." The Malamute's tail thumped softly. Riley looked back at the two seals, Ethan sleeping fitfully near the stove, Nathan unconscious but stable on his makeshift bed, and felt the weight of responsibility settle over her. These men had been sent here to die. They'd been betrayed by people they trusted. And now their only hope was a 16-year-old girl and her dog, alone in the Alaskan wilderness, preparing for a fight against trained killers. The odds were terrible. The situation was impossible. But Riley had been raised by Jack McKenna, and Jack had taught her that impossible just meant nobody's done it yet. "Come on, then," she whispered to the storm, to the darkness, to the enemies she knew were out there. "Come and try to take them. I dare you." Beside her, Kodiak growled softly, a sound of agreement, of shared determination. They would hold this ground, or they would die trying. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible true stories of courage and loyalty. The storm broke on the third day with an eerie, sudden silence that was somehow more unsettling than the howling wind had been. Riley stood at the window, watching the weak afternoon sun break through the clouds, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of gold and blue. "They'll come today," Ethan said from behind her. He was up and moving now, still battered but functional, his training overriding his body's protests. "I know," Riley replied. She checked her rifle for the 100th time, magazine seated, round-chambered, safety on, ready. Nathan was sitting up now, propped against the wall with blankets and pillows. His color was better, his eyes clear, but the wound in his side meant he couldn't move fast. He held Riley's .45, his finger resting beside the trigger guard, ready but disciplined. Kodiak moved between all three of them, his instincts telling him something was coming. His ears were constantly swiveling, his nose working the air that seeped in through the cracks in the shutters. "Riley," Ethan said quietly, "when this starts, I need you to promise me something." "Don't," Riley interrupted. "Don't ask me to run. Don't ask me to hide. This is my home. These are my walls, and I won't abandon them. Or you." Ethan looked at this extraordinary girl and saw her father in every line of her face. "Your dad would be proud, but he'd also want you alive. Then let's make sure we all stay that way, Riley said. The attack came at 1400 hours. Kodiak alerted first. His head snapped up, his body going rigid, a low growl building in his chest. He was staring at the shuttered south window. "Contact south," Riley said immediately, her voice steady. "Cody's never wrong." Ethan moved to the front window, peering through a gap in the shutter. For a long moment, he saw nothing. Then, there, a flash of movement. White camouflage against the snow, nearly invisible, but moving. "Visual confirmed," he said. "At least 4 hostiles approaching from the tree line. Military tactics, professional spacing. They're good." "How good?" Riley asked. "Very. These aren't weekend warriors. These are Tier 1 contractors, former special operations." "So are you," Riley pointed out. "So am I," Ethan agreed. "Nathan?" "I'm good," Nathan called from his position. "My sector is clear so far." They waited. Seconds ticked by. The contractors were moving slowly, carefully, checking for traps and ambush positions. Then a voice boomed across the snow, amplified by a bullhorn. "Lieutenant Commander Cross, Chief Reeves, we know you're in there. This is Director Kovach with Summit Security Solutions. We're here to extract you, bring you to safety. The training operation went bad. We're here to help." Riley looked at Ethan. "That true?" "Hell no," Ethan said. "That's the same voice that gave the order to kill us. He's trying to get us to come out peacefully." The voice continued. "Commander, we have authorization from Naval Special Warfare Command. You're being recalled. Come out and we'll provide medical treatment and transport." Nathan actually laughed, though it made him wince. "They really think we're that stupid." "They're hoping," Ethan said, trying to avoid a firefight that might attract attention. He raised his voice, shouting through the shutter. "Kovach, you tried to kill us. You left us to die. We're not coming out. You want us, you'll have to come in." There was a long silence. Then Kovach's voice came back, and all the false friendliness was gone. "Have it your way, Cross, but know this. You got a civilian kid in there. When we breach, she dies first. Her blood is on your hands." Riley's jaw clenched. "I hate that guy." "Join the club," Nathan muttered. Ethan keyed the radio he'd taken from Riley's emergency supplies, switching to the frequency he knew Summit Security would be monitoring. "Kovach, the kid you're talking about has more combat sense than half your team. She saved our lives, and she's going to help us end yours. Last chance to walk away." "Negative, Commander. You've seen too much. You know too much. This is where it ends." The radio went dead. "Here they come," Ethan said. The first assault was textbook, suppressive fire from 2 positions while 2 more contractors rushed the front door. Bullets punched through the shutters, splintering wood, but the reinforced structure held. Riley was at her position, the AR-15 shouldered, her breathing controlled. When the first contractor reached the porch, she fired through a pre-cut porthole in the shutter. 3 controlled shots. The man went down, screaming, hit in the leg and shoulder. "One down," Riley called. Ethan was at the opposite window, firing carefully aimed shots. Another contractor fell, this one not getting back up. The remaining attackers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. "Phase 1 repelled," Ethan said, "but they'll regroup and try again, probably with explosives next time." He was right. 10 minutes later, they heard the distinctive thump of a grenade launcher. The flashbang hit the roof, detonating with a concussive bang that made everyone's ears ring. Then 2 more, in rapid succession. "Breaching charges next," Ethan yelled. "Get ready." The explosion that followed blew the front door off its hinges, sending it flying across the room in a shower of splinters and smoke. The steel reinforcement had slowed the blast, but it hadn't stopped it. Contractors poured through the opening, 4 of them moving fast, weapons up. Riley fired, her shots precise despite the chaos. She hit the lead contractor center mass, the man's body armor absorbing the rounds, but the impact knocking him backward into the man behind him. Ethan was firing too, his pistol barking in the enclosed space. Another contractor went down. But there were too many of them. They were inside now, spreading out, using cover. And then Kodiak entered the fight. The Malamute had been waiting, perfectly still, conserving his energy. But now, as one of the contractors turned his weapon toward Riley, Kodiak launched himself with a roar that was more wolf than dog. 140 pounds of fury and fangs hit the contractor like a missile. The man's rifle went flying. Kodiak's jaws clamped down on the man's arm, not to wound, but to control, to neutralize the threat. The contractor screamed, trying to shake the dog off. Kodiak held on, his powerful neck muscles locked, dragging the man to the ground. "Cody, release," Riley commanded. The Malamute instantly let go, backing toward Riley, positioning himself between her and the downed contractor. But the distraction had been enough. Ethan closed with the remaining contractors in close-quarters combat, his hands and body becoming weapons. He was injured, exhausted, but he was also a Navy SEAL, and these contractors, for all their training, weren't his equal. He disabled one with a brutal strike to the throat, disarmed another, and used the man's own momentum to send him crashing into the wall. The fight was over in less than 20 seconds. 4 contractors lay on the floor, 2 unconscious, one holding his bleeding arm where Kodiak had bitten, one groaning and trying to crawl toward the door. "Clear," Ethan called. Riley was already moving, zip-tying the contractor's hands with supplies from her father's kit. Kodiak stood guard, his teeth bared, daring any of them to move. Nathan, still against the wall, but with his pistol raised, had provided overwatch. He hadn't needed to fire. Riley and Ethan had handled it. But the victory was short-lived. "Ethan," Nathan called. "Movement outside. More of them." Ethan ran to the window. His blood ran cold. At least 6 more contractors were approaching, and they had brought heavy weapons. He could see a belt-fed machine gun being set up, an AT-4 rocket launcher being prepped. "They're going to level the building," Ethan said. "We can't hold against that. We need to evacuate. Now." Riley was already moving. "Root cellar, the tunnel, move." They pulled the rug aside, revealing the trap door to the cellar. Ethan went first, then helped Nathan down, the wounded SEAL biting back cries of pain as he descended the ladder. "Riley, come on!" Ethan yelled. "Cody first!" Riley commanded, pointing to the trap door. The Malamute hesitated. He didn't want to leave Riley, but training overcame instinct. He jumped down, landing heavily but safely. Riley grabbed her father's rifle and her pack, took one last look at the homestead, the place her father had built, the only home she'd known, and followed. They sealed the trap door behind them just as the rocket hit. The explosion was catastrophic. The entire structure above them shuddered, beams cracking, walls collapsing. Dust and debris rained down through the floorboards. "Move!" Ethan yelled, pushing everyone toward the tunnel entrance. "This whole place is coming down." They crawled through the narrow passage, Ethan leading, pulling Nathan behind him, Riley at the rear with Kodiak. The tunnel was dark, cramped, terrifying. Riley could hear the homestead collapsing behind them, the sound of her father's legacy being destroyed. But there was no time for grief, only survival. They emerged from the tunnel into the forest, gasping, covered in dirt. Behind them, the homestead was a roaring inferno, black smoke billowing into the clear sky. "They'll think we died in there," Nathan said, leaning against a tree, his face pale from pain and exertion. "Maybe," Ethan said, "but Kovacs is smart. He'll want confirmation. Bodies. He'll send men to search the rubble." "Then we need to move," Riley said. "I know these woods. There's an old hunting blind about 3 miles north. We can regroup there, figure out our next move." "We can't run forever," Nathan pointed out. "We're injured, low on supplies, and they have superior numbers." "Then we don't run," Riley said. "We hunt." Ethan looked at her. "What are you thinking?" Riley's gray eyes were hard. "These men came to my home. They destroyed the only thing I had left of my father. They tried to kill people I've chosen to protect. So now we stop being prey. Now we become predators." She looked at Kodiak, who stood beside her, his fur singed from the explosion, but his eyes bright and alert. "Cody and I know these woods better than anyone. We can move silently, strike from ambush, disappear before they know what hit them. We'll use their own tactics against them. We'll hunt them one by one until they're too scared to keep coming." "That's insane," Nathan said. "That's guerrilla warfare," Ethan corrected. "And she's right. We can't win a straight fight, but if we use the terrain, use surprise, use their fear, we can level the playing field," Riley finished. Ethan looked at this 16-year-old girl who had saved their lives, who had lost her home defending them, and who was now proposing to hunt trained killers through the Alaskan wilderness with nothing but courage and a dog, and he found himself smiling. "Jack McKenna's daughter," he said. "All right, Riley, we do it your way. We hunt." The hunting blind was exactly where Riley remembered. A weathered platform 12 feet up in a massive spruce tree, camouflaged with branches and moss, invisible unless you knew where to look. Her father had built it years ago, and they'd spent countless hours here watching wildlife, learning patience, learning the rhythms of the forest. Now it was their fortress. They had climbed up carefully. Nathan needed help, his wound bleeding again from the exertion, but he made it. Kodiak had been hauled up using rope and his own scrambling determination. The platform was barely big enough for 3 humans and 1 large dog, but it offered concealment and a tactical overview of the terrain. Riley immediately went to work treating Nathan's reopened wound with what little medical supplies they'd salvaged. "You're going to need real medical attention soon," she said, her hands steady as she applied fresh bandages. "This is just delaying the inevitable." "Then we need to end this quickly," Nathan replied through gritted teeth. Ethan was scanning the forest with Riley's binoculars. "I count 4 contractors conducting a search pattern, moving outward from the homestead ruins. They're looking for bodies, looking for us." "How long before they figure out we escaped through the tunnel?" Riley asked. "Already have," Ethan said. 2 just found the exit. They're regrouping, calling it in. We have maybe 30 minutes before they organize a proper search." Riley pulled out a hand-drawn map of the area. Her father's map, annotated with notes about terrain, water sources, game trails. She studied it, her mind working. "If they're smart, they'll set up a perimeter here, here, and here," she said, pointing to 3 positions. "Then sweep inward, trying to flush us out toward their guns." "Standard search and destroy pattern," Ethan confirmed. "What's our counter?" Riley smiled. Not a happy smile, but a predator's smile. We don't run from the sweep. We let them spread out, thin their line. Then Cody and I hit their western flank, create chaos, make them think we're trying to break out in that direction. While they're reacting, you and Nathan move east, circle behind them, and take out their command post. That's the most dangerous job, Ethan pointed out. You'll be exposed, outnumbered. I'll have Cody, Riley said simply. And I know terrain they don't. I can ghost through these woods like I don't exist. They'll never see me until I want them to. Ethan studied her. Your father taught you guerrilla tactics? Every day, Riley said. He said the difference between a soldier and a survivor is that soldiers fight on the enemy's terms. Survivors make the enemy fight on theirs. Smart man, Nathan said. But Riley, if something goes wrong, it won't, Riley interrupted. Trust me, trust Cody. We've got this. They spent the next hour preparing. Riley and Kodiak would carry the AR-15 and most of the ammunition. They'd need firepower for the diversion. Ethan and Nathan would take the pistols and move silently, striking from stealth. As they prepared to split up, Riley knelt beside Kodiak and looked into his blue eyes. This is going to be dangerous, boy, she said softly. More dangerous than anything we've done. But I need you with me. Can you do this? Kodiak's tail wagged once, a serious wag, not playful, but committed. Good boy, Riley whispered. She looked up at Nathan. Chief, when this is over, Cody is going to expect you to keep your promise. What promise? Nathan asked. The one you made when you were half conscious and he was keeping you warm. You promised him you'd be okay. Dogs remember promises. Nathan reached out and scratched Kodiak's ears. Then, I'll do my best to keep it, buddy. The Malamute licked his hand, a gesture of trust, of friendship, of pack. And then it was time. Riley and Kodiak descended from the blind and melted into the forest like smoke. Ethan watched them go, then looked at Nathan. That's either the bravest kid I've ever met or the craziest. Both, Nathan said. Definitely both. Riley moved through the Alaskan wilderness like a ghost. She'd been taught by her father, taught to place her feet to avoid snapping twigs, taught to move with the wind so her scent wouldn't carry, taught to read the forest and become part of it. Kodiak moved beside her, equally silent despite his size. The Malamute's paws were huge, designed for snow, and they distributed his weight perfectly. He was a white and gray shadow, barely visible against the snow-covered ground. They reached the western flank of the contractor's search line within 20 minutes. Riley climbed a small ridge and surveyed the situation through her scope. 6 contractors, spread out in pairs, moving carefully but predictably. They were following a textbook search pattern which meant Riley could anticipate their movements. She waited until the nearest pair was in position, 30 yards away, focused on the terrain ahead of them, their backs partially exposed. Then she fired, not to kill, but to terrify. Her first shot kicked up snow at the lead contractor's feet. Her second shattered a tree branch above their heads. Her third, that one found flesh, hitting one of the men in the shoulder. The contractors immediately went to ground, returning fire toward Riley's position. But she was already moving, Kodiak beside her, relocating to a new vantage point. She fired again from the new position. More shots, more chaos. The contractors were shouting into their radios, calling for backup, reporting contact with multiple hostiles. Multiple hostiles was just one girl and one dog, but they didn't know that. Riley fired twice more, then moved again. She was a ghost, appearing and disappearing, making them think they were facing a larger force. And it was working. The contractors were pulling back, consolidating, focusing all their attention west, which left their command post, a hastily erected tent with communications equipment, exposed. Ethan and Nathan approached the command post from the east, moving with the painful slowness of professionals who knew one mistake meant death. Nathan was barely holding together, his face gray with pain, but his hands were steady on his pistol. They could see two contractors guarding the tent, both focused on the radio chatter coming from the western flank. Multiple contacts, heavy fire, requesting backup. "All units converge west," a calm voice, Kovac, ordered from inside the tent. "Neutralize the targets." Ethan signaled Nathan. "You take left, I take right. On my mark." Nathan nodded. 3, 2, 1, now. They moved simultaneously. Ethan closed with his target before the man could raise his weapon. A brutal strike to the throat followed by a takedown. The contractor was unconscious before he hit the ground. Nathan's target turned, started to shout, but Nathan was on him, the wounded SEAL moving with a speed born of desperation. A pistol strike to the temple. The contractor dropped. They dragged both bodies into the brush and approached the tent. Inside, Kovac stood over a map, his radio in hand. He was alone. He'd sent all his men to deal with the perceived threat in the west. Ethan stepped through the tent flap, his pistol raised. "Don't move," he said quietly. Kovac froze, then slowly turned. He was a large man, late 40s, with a shaved head and cold eyes. When he saw Ethan, his expression didn't change. "Commander Cross," he said calmly. "I have to admit I'm impressed. Not many men could survive what we did to you." "Who are you working for?" Ethan demanded. "Who's running the arms trafficking operation?" Kovac smiled. "You really think I'm going to tell you? I'm a professional, Commander. I don't give up clients." "Then you're going to prison for attempted murder of federal operators," Nathan said, limping into the tent, his pistol also raised. "Doubtful," Kovac said. "My employer has connections at the highest levels. This whole incident will be classified, buried, forgotten. You'll spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders, wondering when we'll come back to finish the job." "Or," Ethan said, "we can end this right now. You call off your men, you surrender, you cooperate with federal authorities, and maybe you get to live." Kovac laughed. "You're not going to shoot me, Commander. You're a SEAL. You follow rules of engagement. You don't execute prisoners." "You're right," Ethan agreed. "I don't." He lowered his weapon. Kovac's smile widened. "Smart choice." "But I didn't say she wouldn't," Ethan added. Kovac had just enough time to look confused before Riley's voice came from behind him. "Turn around slowly," she said. Kovac turned. Riley stood at the back of the tent, having approached in complete silence. Her rifle was shouldered, aimed directly at Kovac's chest, and beside her, Kodiak stood with his teeth bared, growling low. "That dog," Riley said conversationally, "has decided that Chief Reeves is his person, which means anyone who threatens the chief is Cody's enemy, and Cody is very protective of his enemies." "You're a kid," Kovac said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "I'm the kid who saved 2 SEALs you tried to kill," Riley corrected. "I'm the kid who led your men into an ambush. I'm the kid whose home you destroyed. And I'm the kid who's very, very tired of you." She stepped closer. "Now you're going to get on that radio. You're going to tell your men that they're to lay down their weapons and surrender. And then you're going to wait for federal authorities to arrive and put you in a cage where you belong." "And if I refuse?" Kovac asked. Riley smiled. "Then Cody gets to play. And trust me, you don't want that." As if to emphasize the point, Kodiak took a step forward, his growl deepening. Kovacs looked at the dog, at the teenage girl who commanded him, at the two seals who had somehow survived everything he'd thrown at them. And for the first time, doubt crossed his face. "Fine," he said. "I'll make the call." The federal response, once Ethan got through to Naval Special Warfare Command on Kovacs satellite equipment, was overwhelming. 2 helicopters arrived within an hour, FBI, NCIS, and Naval Special Warfare personnel. By nightfall, the entire contractor force had been arrested. The evidence in Kovacs' command post, manifests, communication logs, financial records, was damning. The arms trafficking operation was exposed. The compromised officials, including a rear admiral and 2 defense contractors, were identified and arrested, and Riley McKenna, her dog Kodiak, and 2 Navy SEALs became heroes. But Riley didn't feel like a hero. She felt empty. Her home was gone. Her father's legacy was ashes. 3 days later, at a military hospital in Anchorage where Nathan was recovering from surgery to properly repair his wounds, Riley sat in a waiting room, Kodiak at her feet. Ethan found her there. "Hey," he said softly, "how you holding up?" "I don't know," Riley admitted. "I did what I had to do. I'd do it again. But my home is gone," Ethan finished. "I know, and I'm sorry. That shouldn't have happened." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan spoke again. "I've been talking to some people. Naval Special Warfare Command, the FBI. They want to help you, Riley. They want to rebuild your homestead, compensate you for your losses." "I don't want compensation," Riley said. "I want my dad back. I want my home back. I want my life back." "I know," Ethan said gently, "but your dad is gone. Your home can be rebuilt. And your life? Riley, you're 16 years old. You have so much ahead of you. College, career, possibilities you haven't even imagined." Riley looked at him. "What if I don't want those things? What if I want to do what you do?" Ethan blinked. "You want to join the military?" "I want to matter," Riley corrected. "I want to help people. I want to make sure no one else loses what I lost. And I'm good at it, Commander. You know I am." Ethan couldn't argue with that. Riley McKenna had skills that most operators took years to develop. She had courage, intelligence, tactical sense. "All right," he said slowly. "How about this? You finish high school. You go to college, Naval Academy if you can get in, any university if you can't. You get your education. And when you're old enough, if you still want this life, I'll personally sponsor your application to Bud S." "Bud S?" Riley's eyes widened. "SEAL training?" "Why not?" Ethan said. "SEALs accept women now, and you've proven you have what it takes, but you need the education first. You need the foundation. Can you do that?" Riley thought about it, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, I can do that." "Good." Ethan stood. "Now come on. Nathan wants to see you. He's awake." They walked to Nathan's room. The SEAL was sitting up in bed, looking tired but alive. When he saw Riley, he smiled. "Hey, kid," he said. "Come here." Riley approached, and Nathan held out his hand. In it was something that made Riley's breath catch, a SEAL trident pin, his own, the one he'd worn on his uniform. "This is for you," Nathan said. "You earned it. You saved our lives. You fought beside us. You're one of us now." Riley took the pin with shaking hands. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Nathan replied. "Just promise me you'll stay tough, stay smart, and take care of that incredible dog of yours." As if summoned, Kodiak stood and walked to Nathan's bedside. The Malamute rested his head on the bed, looking at the seal with those blue eyes. Nathan scratched behind Kodiak's ears. "You too, buddy. You saved me. I won't forget that. Ever." Kodiak's tail wagged, a full, happy wag this time. The crisis was over. His pack was safe. Riley pinned the trident to her jacket and looked at the two seals who had changed her life. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." "Thank you," Ethan replied. "You gave us something we'd lost. You gave us hope." 6 months later, Riley McKenna stood in the clearing where her homestead had once been. The debris had been cleared away, and a new structure was rising, built by a volunteer crew from Naval Special Warfare Command, better than the original, a testament to the bonds forged in fire. The builders had left for the day, and Riley was alone with Kodiak, watching the sunset paint the Alaskan wilderness in shades of orange and purple. She heard the helicopter before she saw it, a Navy Blackhawk landing in the clearing with practiced precision. Ethan and Nathan emerged, both in civilian clothes, both grinning. "Surprise visit," Ethan called as he approached. "We were in the area. Thought we'd check on the construction." "It's beautiful," Riley said, gesturing to the nearly completed structure. "Better than I imagined." "You deserve it," Nathan said. He was walking without a limp now, his wound fully healed. "How's school?" "Boring compared to hunting armed contractors," Riley admitted. "But I'm doing well, straight A's, applying to the Naval Academy next year." "You'll get in," Ethan said confidently. "Your essay about surviving in the wilderness and saving 2 idiot seals should seal the deal." They laughed, the sound carrying across the clearing. Kodiak, who had been dozing in a patch of sun, suddenly stood and trotted over to Nathan. The Malamute sat directly in front of the seal, tail wagging, waiting. Nathan knelt and wrapped his arms around the dog's neck. "I missed you too, buddy. You know that, right?" Kodiak's tail wagged harder. Riley watched the reunion with a smile. "He's been moping since you left. I think you're his favorite person now." "The feeling's mutual," Nathan said. "This dog saved my life. I owe him everything." They spent the evening together, cooking dinner over an open fire, sharing stories, laughing about things that weren't funny at the time but had become funny with distance. The trial was over. Kovach and his team were in federal prison, facing sentences that would keep them locked up for decades. The arms trafficking operation had been dismantled. Justice had been served. As the fire burned down and the stars came out, brilliant in the clear Alaskan sky, they sat in comfortable silence. Finally, Riley spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said, Commander, about mattering, about making a difference." "And?" Ethan asked. "And I realized something. My dad spent his whole life teaching me to survive. He taught me to hunt, to track, to fight, to endure, but I don't think he wanted me to just survive. I think he wanted me to live, to find purpose, to be more than just reactive." She looked at both seals. "You two showed me what that looks like. You didn't just survive what happened to you, you fought back. You protected each other. You stood for something bigger than yourselves." "That's what we do," Nathan said quietly. "That's what the trident means. It means you're a part of something that matters." Riley touched the pin she still wore, Nathan's trident, which she'd never taken off. "I want that. I want to be part of something that matters. So I'm going to finish school. I'm going to get into the academy. And I'm going to become a SEAL. A real one." Ethan smiled. "Your dad would be proud." "I hope so," Riley said. "But more than that, I want to make you proud. You trusted me when I was just a kid with a dog. You treated me like an equal. You gave me purpose when I'd lost everything. I won't let you down." "You already haven't," Ethan said. "Riley, you saved our lives. You exposed a criminal operation. You fought trained killers and won. You're already a hero." "Then let me be a hero with a purpose," Riley replied. "Let me be a protector, like my dad was, like you are." Nathan looked at Ethan, then back at Riley. "All right, but you should know what you're signing up for. SEAL training is brutal. Most people quit. And once you're in the teams, the work is hard, dangerous, and often thankless." "I know," Riley said, "but I also know I'm not doing it for thanks. I'm doing it because someone has to stand between the innocent and the evil. Someone has to be the shield, and I want to be that someone." Kodiak, as if sensing the weight of the moment, came and sat beside Riley, his body pressed against her leg. "You won't be alone," Ethan said. "You'll have brothers and sisters. You'll have a team. And you'll always have us. No matter where you go, what you do, Nathan and I will be in your corner." "Promise?" Riley asked, and for a moment she sounded like the 16-year-old she was. "Promise," both SEALs said together. 4 years later, Ensign Riley McKenna stood at attention on the parade ground at the Naval Academy, receiving her diploma and commission. In the crowd, wearing their dress uniforms, sat Commander Ethan Cross and Senior Chief Nathan Reeves, and at Nathan's feet, special permission granted, sat Kodiak, older now, grayer but still magnificent. When Riley's name was called, both SEALs stood and saluted. Kodiak's tail thumped against the ground. After the ceremony, they found her in the crowd. She ran to them, her academy cap flying off, and hugged them both. "You came," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Of course we came," Nathan replied. "We wouldn't miss this." Kodiak pushed forward, demanding attention. Riley knelt and buried her face in his fur. "Hey, old man," she whispered, "I did it, just like I promised." The Malamute licked her face, a gesture of pride, of love, of pack. "What are your orders?" Ethan asked. Riley pulled out her assignment. "Naval Special Warfare Preparatory School. Then, Bud S. I start in 3 months." "That's the hardest thing you'll ever do," Nathan warned. "Good," Riley said. "I like hard, and I've got the best trainers already. You two are going to make sure I don't quit, right?" "We're going to make your life hell," Ethan promised with a smile. "But yes, we'll be there every step of the way." 5 years after that, Petty, Officer First Class Riley McKenna stood on a beach in Coronado, California, receiving her SEAL Trident. She had completed Bud S., one of only a handful of women to do so. She had proven herself in every way that mattered. Ethan pinned the trident to her uniform. Nathan stood beside him, both men wearing expressions of profound pride. "Welcome to the teams," Ethan said. "Your dad would be proud. We're proud." Riley looked at the trident on her chest, the same symbol Nathan had given her years ago, now earned through blood, sweat, and tears. "This is for him," she said quietly. "For my dad, for showing me what honor means. It's for you, too," Nathan corrected. "You earned this, not because of who your father was, because of who you are." They stood there on the beach, 3 warriors bound by shared trauma, shared victory, and shared purpose. And though Jack McKenna was gone, his legacy lived on in his daughter, a warrior, a protector, a shield. 10 years after the incident in Alaska, Commander Riley McKenna, now a SEAL team operator with multiple deployments under her belt, was invited to speak at the Naval Academy. She stood before a class of first-year midshipmen and told them her story. She told them about finding 2 seals left to die in a frozen cabin. She told them about Kodiak, the Malamute who had refused to leave Nathan's side. She told them about choosing to fight instead of run, about protecting instead of hiding. And then she told them the most important lesson. That day in Alaska, she said, her voice carrying across the auditorium, I learned what my father had been trying to teach me my whole life. Strength isn't about muscles or weapons or tactics. Strength is about making a choice when every instinct tells you to run. It's about deciding that someone else's life matters more than your own safety. She paused, looking at each young face. The trident I wear represents that choice. Every SEAL who earns this pin has made it. We choose to run toward danger. We choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We choose to be the shield, even when it costs us everything. She touched the pin on her chest. My dog Kodiak understood this instinctively. He didn't need training to know that when someone is hurt and scared and dying, you don't leave them. You stay. You give them your warmth. You give them your courage. You give them hope. Her voice strengthened. That's what we do. That's what this uniform means. We give people hope when they have none. We stand when everyone else falls. We fight when fighting seems impossible. She looked directly at the midshipmen. Some of you will go on to become SEALs. Most won't. But all of you can carry this lesson. In your darkest moment, when everything seems lost, someone will appear who refuses to leave you behind. And someday, you will be that someone for another person. You will be their hope, their courage, their reason to keep fighting. She came to attention and saluted. That's what my father taught me. That's what Commander Cross and Chief Reeves showed me. And that's what I'm telling you now. Be the person who doesn't leave. Be the one who stays. Be the shield. The auditorium erupted in applause. Later, after the talk, Riley found Ethan and Nathan waiting outside. Both were retired now. Both serving as instructors, passing their knowledge to the next generation. And beside Nathan, grayer and slower but still magnificent, sat Kodiak. Riley knelt and wrapped her arms around the old Malamute. "Hey, boy," she whispered, "you still remember, don't you? That cabin, that cold night, the choice you made to stay." Kodiak's tail thumped weakly. He was 13 now, ancient for a Malamute, but his eyes were still bright, still intelligent. "You taught me everything," Riley said, her voice breaking. "You showed me what loyalty looks like, what love looks like, what courage looks like." She looked up at Nathan and Ethan, both men with tears in their eyes. "Thank you," she said, "for trusting me, for teaching me, for believing I could be more than just a scared kid in the woods." "You were never just a scared kid," Ethan said. "You were always a warrior. You just needed someone to show you how to fight." Riley stood, her hand still on Kodiak's head. "And now I do the same for others. I show them how to fight, how to protect, how to be the shield." She looked at the Naval Academy behind her, at the young faces learning to be warriors, and she felt her father's presence. Proud, loving, eternal. "This is for you, Dad," she whispered to the sky. "Everything I do, everything I am, this is for you." And somewhere in the Alaskan wilderness, in a homestead rebuilt from ashes, the wind carried her words away into the eternal snow. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that heroes still exist. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and let us know in the comments. What was your favorite moment? Was it Kodiak's unwavering loyalty, Riley's courage in protecting the seals, or the moment when she chose to fight instead of run? We read every comment. This story reminds us that courage comes in all forms. Riley was just a teenager, but she had the heart of a warrior because her father had taught her that some things are worth fighting for. Kodiak was just a dog, but his loyalty and love saved a man's life in the most profound way possible. How many of us would have the courage to risk everything for strangers? How many of us would stay when running would be safer? Military working dogs serve alongside our bravest warriors with a devotion that transcends training. They protect, they comfort, they save lives, asking nothing in return except love and purpose. And people like Riley, who choose to run toward danger instead of away from it, remind us that heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. If you've ever felt small or powerless, remember Riley at 16, standing against trained killers to protect 2 seals she'd just met. If you've ever doubted whether loyalty still exists, remember Kodiak refusing to leave Nathan's side even in the freezing cold. If you've ever wondered whether one person can make a difference, remember that this story started with a girl and her dog choosing not to walk away. Heroes walk among us. Some wear uniforms, some have 4 legs and fur, and some are teenagers in the Alaskan wilderness who see people in need and decide, I'm going to help. God bless our service members, our military working dogs, and everyone who chooses to be the shield for those who cannot protect themselves. See you in the next story.